Howdy y'all, Muku Muku here. I have a bit of an intern project that I sort of did on the fly the other day when I was working on a new Miiverse drawing. I'm in the process of setting up the next video, or I should say planning the next video, but in the meantime, I kind of wanted to give a kind of a step-by-step type thing that I go through when I'm doing art projects and stuff, to kind of give maybe someone out there a jump start to kind of see what my process is and what I was referring to in the last video. So with this, I'm going to I only took pictures, I should say. I only took pictures. It was kind of on a spur of the moment type thing. I took pictures of each step, and what I'm going to do is walk through the process, is what I was thinking and doing on each frame, and hopefully give you a better idea of, the process, especially if you're not an artist, or you're not even if you are an artist, to kind of see that it's the same process that you would do on paper. Same process, rough sketch, fine-tuning, stuff like that. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the process. Alright, so the first frame here is the rough sketch. You can go about that different ways. Sometimes I put a little bit more details, or I should say carve out areas for details. For this particular one, there weren't a whole lot of details I had to worry about. From Star Wars, if you've seen my drawings already, then you'll know which scene it is. I'll leave it up to you to guess if you're not quite sure yet. I will show a final version of this piece, but also a photo from the movie of this piece. So basically on this, you'll just want to do rough sketch. Sometimes mine are rougher than this particular piece. It's all about how you get the shapes and how easily you get the shapes. I did do some erasing on this before I took a picture, but some of it was also to erase to try to get a little bit more of a line that kind of matches the basic shape of what I was going for. You'll still see some stray lines and stuff, and some overdone pieces like the head on the left. A lot of it's just shaping it up. This is going to be the ugliest part, but it is the most necessary part. The best thing to do here is to try to get as best of a shape as you can for the pieces that you're laying out. It'll help in the long run. It won't necessarily stay the same. It could get larger, it could get smaller, but it's much easier to get into the drawing if you at least cut out some basic shapes so you know where your boundaries are. This is my particular rough sketch for this piece. Not all that exciting, but you'll be able to watch it progress as we go on. So let's go to the next piece. Alright, so this is the next step. It's what I call the clean lines step. Basically what you'll do is clean up your lines. Make it a little bit more tailored to the lines that you're trying to go for. More of a final type thing. Obviously anything you do here is not necessarily going to be final, because even I found myself, especially on this particular piece, adjusting the lines even as I went. But try to get it close as possible. It'll help in the long run. Clean up the lines. Basically what I did was to make more solid lines while cleaning up the mess around them. Gives you a more basic shape, because I got rid of all the trash on the inside, any stray marks and stuff. Gave me definition to work with for my objects, because I got rid of all the excess, so now I can see a clear picture of the outside. I can see a clear picture of the structure holding the glass in front of them. I can see the chair and the two figures and the dashboard in front of them. This particular thing is more time consuming than anything because you're trying to clean up the mess that you put down originally. It's not going to be the most time consuming part of the whole thing, but trying to get lines that look well enough to get started is difficult. Depending on the piece that you're working on too, and how difficult and how large of a piece it is. This wasn't too bad. Getting some of the lines was a little bit more of a pain, especially considering all the garbage marks I had around. But it's not bad actually. But you will see the lines that I have here are not definite. Let's go ahead and move on to the next piece and see if we see some of those changes now. And the major thing here is space. The black stuff outside the structure that they're in. That is the big piece for this particular part. Let's move on to the next part. Another pretty simple frame here. They're in hyperdrive, so the movement of space on the outside, or the feeling of movement, has been added. That changes a lot. That was just a basic laydown of it to kind of get an idea. The major portion of it being changed was for to keep things with the same kind of grayscale from blending in. So a lot of that will change on the outside. And the structure that they're in, as you'll see, is got some lines to give it some three-dimensional depth. That will be dealt with in the next image, I believe. So let's move on to the next frame. So the structure that they're in has been defined. You'll see where that the black lines were set the point where the lighter coloring is from the outside. The black is to indicate that it's away from the light and it's much darker than what would be seen normally, because obviously the points that are being hit by the light are closer to the outside. The black sections are on the inside, which wouldn't be affected, and also to help some of the pieces or some things that are about to be done stand out. You'll notice a little bit of the shading on the large piece in the middle there. Did some different things to try to get that. It ended up being a little bit more interesting. I'd never done it quite like that, but it's all about experimenting. Most of my pieces are about experimenting in some way or another, or sometimes experimenting with multiple things. But this frame is pretty simple, so let's go ahead and see what the next frame brings. And now with this frame, I apologize. Since I was doing it on the fly, I wasn't thinking about how I was taking the pictures. The previous pictures are all in the the actual area I'm drawing. This, as you can tell, is not. So I apologize for the change. I do go back and forth, I believe, a bit, and hope to change that in the future, because I'd like to do more of these as I go along, but hopefully I'll be able to be in enough of a mind frame to make sure I'm taking pictures on the same page as the previous. In this, I've done Chewie and his head, his body, everything about him. I've tried to set his head in terms of shading far enough apart from the outside space. I believe this changes a lot because I'm always trying to adjust to make sure it stands out enough that it doesn't blend in. Outside of that, not much going on, so let's go ahead and move on to the next. And in this piece, not much. The chair's been done for that Han is sitting in. This shading on this particular chair will change. If you keep eyes on it, you'll see that I adjust as I go along, but this is just the chair, so let's move on. And we are now back to the draw screen. The chair in this, you'll notice, has a little bit more lighting, a little bit more highlights. The only other thing adjusted that's major right now is Han's vest has been added, with a little bit of lighting on the shoulder, and his color for his shirt. And in this piece, Han's sleeve on his shirt has been added in terms of shading and all. I believe the chair changed a little bit too, with a little bit more lighting. You may see small differences between frames, and that's fine, because a lot of things get tinkered with in between. Sometimes I take pictures of small things like a chair or the vest or something, because there's also some background changes, and also sometimes to give an idea of how things are going, how they're progressing, how I keep in mind shading on the item I'm shading now versus the shading on something that's already been done. Fortunately, the sleeve was easy because the panel's not yet been put in, but that will be done shortly. Let's go ahead and move on to the next frame. This frame contains, well, Han Solo's head. This point, still working on the shading. It's mainly done to be put in. In the next several frames, you'll probably notice some changes to it, trying to set it apart from the background. But some shading was added to his color to make it not so white and not so clean and crisp. You might see some other changes, and I wouldn't doubt it. I can't remember all changes that I did every step of the way, but this should allow you to get an idea of the progression that's been made. And unfortunately, back to another screen. This particular frame, you'll notice Han's head is a little bit more defined, a little bit darker. Hyperspace look has been changed, but also the big adjustment for this is the control panel, you'll notice, has been added where the white space was before. I believe even in this frame, if not before, the hyperspace lighting around Chewie has been adjusted. I believe I adjusted a little bit more before the end. But this is the piece. I think I've got another frame or two where I've got some adjustments. This is the final frame. As you can see, this was posted right when I did it to the YouTube community. Some small differences between the previous frame and this one. Not a whole lot. I believe there was a little bit of lighting on Chewbacca's left side there just to give it a little something. I believe I also adjusted Chewbacca's head and Han Solo's head a bit to get them to stand out a little bit more from light space. Other than that, maybe... Oh yeah, there was a little bit of darkening on the control panel. But other than that, there wasn't a whole lot. It was just like some minor tweaks as I left it on the TV for a few minutes and kind of gazed at it and looked at it from time to time and did several things to try to see if there was anything else to adjust. But after a few minutes, it did the adjustments, and then I moved on with posting it. At that point, just let it go, because you could technically, with any art piece, be tinkering with it all day. So let's take a look here in a moment at the piece, the screenshot that I used to draw from the scene. Okay, and this is the screenshot that I used, that I got from Google Images to work from. Did the best that I could. There are some things I'd like to have changed, but, you know, working in black and white, you have to do the best you can. I'd like to thank you for watching, and I hope that maybe this has provided a bit of insight if you didn't already know. This insight into my process, probably many others as well, and I hope that you are able to use maybe some of these steps into your own drawings to help you produce better quality drawings in Miiverse. And with that said, I think I'm going to end it here this evening. So thank you all and have a good week.